Hi there, and welcome to another success story. Today I've got the great Brett Lloyd, and I'm going to ask him the question I ask everybody. Why did you become carnivore?
I became a carnivore because after 43 years of chronic mental illness, I didn't want to be crazy anymore. And I heard from people with incredible integrity, people like Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Jordan Peterson, that this was possible if I just made this dietary change and go to a zero carb lifestyle. And on the basis of their incredible integrity, I decided that I was going to live this way. And July 16th of 2018 was my first day zero carb. And today is my 1682nd day of only eating meat and drinking water with zero cheat days in between. And I have experienced just an insanely beautiful transformation in every aspect of my life. I suffered from chronic depression, major depression with psychotic features for 43 years of my life. I suffered from chronic anxiety for 43 years of my life, and I suffered from horrible insomnia for 43 years. And all those symptoms have been gone now for over 4.5 years.
Wow.
And as long as I continue to eat this way, I never, ever have to worry about their return. And that's why I do these kinds of talks, because people need to know you're not broken. You're not a genetic error. You don't have a character flaw. You were just taught to consume things under the false notion that they were food, when really it was just toxic garbage. And once you eliminate the toxic garbage from your life, your body's able to repair itself, and you're going to experience a quality of life you never imagined possible.
I mean, when you started, were you a little skeptical? Did you think maybe this won't work, or was you pretty convinced?
I was pretty convinced because, again, I had people with incredible integrity. I mean, Dr. Jordan Peterson, the man who preaches be responsible, don't lie, or, always tell the truth. Dr. Sean Baker, a guy who used to have the nuclear launch codes for the United States Army. They just don't give those to anybody. You've got to be an extraordinarily well put together human being, character-wise. And on the basis of what they assured me they had either experienced firsthand or seen firsthand. What do I have to lose? I mean, I followed the mainstream medical advice. I followed the directions. I took my meds as prescribed. I went to therapy when I had an appointment. I never blew that off. I took it very seriously because I didn't want to be crazy anymore. And none of it worked. All I did was become crazier, more severely mentally ill, unable to accurately perceive my environment to a descending degree as time went on. But the carnivore way of eating eliminated all of that. The morning of August 9th, 2018, I'll never forget as long as I live. Because I'm taking a walk, Stephen, and it's like somebody flipped a switch. And all that rage, and all that anger, and all that darkness, and all that crap that kept me from being the person I always wanted to be, it disappeared. And it was replaced by a waterfall of joy that has not left me since. And man, what a beautiful thing to get to go through. Most people who are on meds, I was on meds for 23 years. Most people that went through, have experiences like I did, they don't get to see 65. And now I'm confident, barring an injury or a car crash, I will see 65 and beyond and be happy to do so, because I've learned. I turn 62 next month, and my wife is 64, and she's a month behind me in carnivore. And together we've learned that just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to get old. That when your body is properly nourished All your hormones come into balance and everything works like it's supposed to. This notion that, when you get older, you have to find hobbies and stuff because intimacy and all that's just really kind of out the window. It's a natural thing. Well, that's just pure BS. It's nonsense. We don't have to suffer a diminished quality of life just because we're aging if we continue to give our bodies the proper nutrition.
Yeah, I echo that 100%. I mean, I'm proud of coming up to 59, and I think even my low carb journey was better than what happened before. So when you started to heal yourself, I mean, obviously at that point you were having medications, you were seeing doctors and stuff. Did you tell them what you were doing? What was their reaction?
Well, see, that's not quite how things went down for me. In 2015, I weighed 289 pounds. I was on 7 different psych meds. And the last psychiatrist I'll ever have, not named Georgia Eade or Dr. Chris Palmer, said to me, you need to seriously consider electroshock therapy and or a long-term hospitalization.
Wow.
And I had seen ECT patients 20 and 30 minutes after the procedure, and there was no way I was turning myself into an animated corpse. And I was very much afraid that if I checked myself into a psych hospital, I might never come out. And around that time, I looked at a friend of mine who just yesterday had had major heart surgery because their ventricle blew out on them. But anyway, this person, incredible music talent, great vocalist. She and I were working together on a blues project, and she's watching me fall apart. And she said one day, have you ever thought about medical marijuana? Now, as a musician, cannabis was always around, but I had a bad experience with it when I was very young. So what do I need that for? Beer's legal. What do I need this for? That just never was my thing. But my wife and I talked about it, and we're like, well, you've done everything else. What is there to lose? Long story short, what I discovered, Stephen, is that medical cannabis treated my symptoms better than any psychiatric medicine I ever took, by many orders of magnitude. And I really didn't anticipate that. I thought, if nothing else, it would throw a better blanket over my symptoms than the psych meds had. But it turned out to be a very effective medicine. And then I'm sitting on the edge of my bed one day, and I realize my belly's in the way while I'm trying to put my shoes on. I'm like, go and look in the mirror, and I see myself accurately for the first time in God knows how long. And I look horrible. I look like somebody made up for The Walking Dead. I my greenish cast to my skin, and my face is swelled up 5 times its normal size because I'm so obese. And I just yelled to my wife, I got to start Atkins now, because I had some good experience with it a few years previously. And so starting in February of 2015, cannabis became a part of my daily regimen, and walking and the low carb Atkins diet as we understood it. And I didn't understand it very well because we poured the fat off our meat instead of consuming it because we thought fat was bad. Anyway, by the end of 2015, I was off the antipsychotics and antidepressants. By the end of 2016, I was off the benzodiazepines that I took for anxiety for 8.5 years. That was not fun. And I'll never forget, the day after I took my last 1/8 of a milligram of Ativan, I woke up with vertigo. And I know that was a direct response to benzodiazepine withdrawal. And at the end of 2017, I was off trazodone, which was the medicine. It's actually an SSRI, but they gave it to me. It's used off label as to help you sleep. And I slept with that for 8.5 years, but woke up with a drug hangover every bloody morning. And so since 2017, with the exception of a couple of runs of antibiotics that I've had to do, I've not had any pharmaceutical meds. None. I haven't even seen a physician since 2017 because I don't need to.
So,
Go ahead.
so you basically just walked away from it. What about friends and family? Did they see the difference and just think, yeah, you're doing the right thing, or did you get pushback?
Well, the people that have seen me since I got well through Carnivore, they're very happy for me. Now, some of them who haven't seen me in person yet, they still think I'm crazy, because just eating meat, that's nuts. That you've done and said some crazy things, Brett, but this takes the cake. But the reality is, here I am today. I got my lab work is incredible. I wish my cholesterol was higher. It's actually gone down every year. I have my inflammation is so low that I have a 0.4% chance of ever having a cardiovascular event. Some doctor told me I could damn near live forever with that. And I said, well, I don't think I want to do that. But it's nice to know that I'm not in imminent danger of having a cardiovascular event. And let's face it, that's what usually, heart attacks, something cardiovascular related, usually what takes us out at the end of our life. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable about that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I'm constantly getting new people tuning in, by the way, and they might have thought that they misheard you, but you quite clearly said you'd quite like your cholesterol to be higher. So do you want to sort of explain why you're saying that?
Well, there's studies that show that higher cholesterol contributes to longevity. And who doesn't want more longevity? If you're against longevity, you might need to see a psychiatrist. And it's counterintuitive to the mainstream medical narrative. But everything, it's interesting, Stephen, when the more I do the opposite of what mainstream medicine recommends, the better my quality of life becomes.
I think that's echoed everywhere. I say that. Doing the opposite seems to be the thing to do. Sad, isn't it? So sad.
Well, it is very sad because people are very easily manipulated, and you know as well as I do by the kind of coaching work that we both are engaged in, that sick people are more easily frightened, they're more easily manipulated, and well people are a whole different story altogether because we can see things clearly, we can strategize well, and we can dodge and navigate the obstacles that everyday life throws at us without really breaking much of a sweat.
Yeah. Lovely, poetic, very poetic there. But you're a musician, aren't you? So I sort of expect that. One of the things I always loved about you when we first were together at Meet RX, actually, was you're really good at summing stuff up in a very simple way, and you keep Carnivore really simple, which I think is the key to your success. Personally, I think just being simple. So for the people listening, what's your day of eating like? Do you do 2 MAD, OMAD? What do you do?
I follow these directions. You knew you were going to hear the directions because it's the foundation for my carnivory are these directions. Only eat when you're hungry. When you're hungry, only eat meat until you're not another bite full. Only eat the meat that you crave, that satisfies you, that you can afford. And under no circumstance do you ever put any sweet taste into your mouth. Now, I read those. I didn't come up with those. I discovered those directions at the Zeroing In on Health group on Facebook, which has a lot of 10-year plus carnivores, Kelly Hogan, Dr. Lisa Wiedemann, Charles Washington, and many others. And I could understand those directions. There was no macros. You didn't have to do any tracking. There was no fasting. It was eat when you're hungry, eat till you're satiated, eat what you crave. Where's the downside in any of that? And so I follow those same directions for every meal, every day of my life because it works. People are like, well, don't you get tired of eating? No, I'm eating what I crave. Now, how do you get tired of eating what satisfies you? How do it just goes to show how messed up our Western mindset is with regards to the reason for eating. It's fuel, it's nourishment. It's never been about entertainment for me. How do you not get bored? Easy. I put another bite in my mouth. It's simple because it's always the most incredibly delicious thing I've ever eaten. Day after day, meal after meal, without fail. And there's what works, and then there's everything else.
Say the same thing to all the people that you coach. Do they all follow you?
Absolutely. All my coaching clients, it's one of the first things. And even when I facilitated 2 or 3 and then 2 mental health meetings for MeatRx and Rivero for 3.5 years. And I would tell all the new people who would come into those mental health meetings those same directions, because you need to have a solid foundation. You need to put together a foundation in order to build your new wellness upon. And so that's always been, everybody always hears the directions, and I'll never stop sharing those because I think they're critical to success at this way of eating.
Do you find a place for fasting for any of your clients, or do you not think that's needed?
It depends on the client. If the client is morbidly obese, I think fasting is a very useful tool. I also think that for people who are not morbidly obese, fasting can be a risky gimmick. It's all about the mindset of the individual, what their reasons for wanting to fast are, because in my experience, denying your body nutrition when it's craving it, especially when you're healing. Now, if you eliminated your symptoms from whatever it was that brought you to the carnivore diet, and you want to experiment with fasting, have at it. But when you come to me as a client, my objective is to get you well, not better, not improved, but 100% symptom-free. And we can't do that, in my experience, by denying your body the nutrition that it needs to facilitate its healing.
So you feel it's a bit of a fad, really, or a bit of a gimmick?
For many people, once they're symptom-free, it suits their lifestyle, especially when they come to it naturally instead of programmatically. I have a problem with programmatic fasting, unless it's done by a physician. I am very loath to recommend fasting for somebody who's not morbidly obese, because I feel like I'm giving medical advice at that point, and I have no business ever giving medical advice.
So what is the food that you crave?
Lean ground beef, 90-10, 93-7 ground beef, and bacon, fatty bacon. That's just the greatest, most delicious, satisfying combination of meat I will ever come across, I expect.
Now,
if I could afford it, I would replace the lean ground beef with filet mignon, but I can't afford filet mignon 3 times a day. I can't afford it once a month right now, so lean ground beef it is.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing, you see. You can do carnivore on a budget. I mean, that's one of the things I think is good about your Instagram, for instance. I can remember when I first saw it, I thought, is he posting the same picture every day?
That's always freshly cooked before I take the picture. I make the food. We don't cook big batches of food and then put it in the fridge and eat out of it that way. No, it's all made fresh, because I don't like reheated meat. It does something to the flavor. I just don't care for it very much.
So people listening on the podcast, you got a big mug there. Is that coffee or is that just water? What do you drink?
Plain old water, my friend. Sometimes I'm a firm believer in the champagne of waters, and that's carbonated water. That's like, when you only drink water, there's frozen, there's very ice cold water, there's lukewarm water, there's hot water, and then there's fizzy water. And fizzy water is the champagne of water.
So how do you go about getting clients? What's your thing?
Well, it's the platform. I still work for Rivero. I get a lot of clients from there. Most of my clients have seen me do interviews, and they're moved to. I'm usually their last hope, because the majority of my clients are all dealing with some form of mental illness, which considering my history is not surprising. And so most of the time, that's what I'm dealing with, people with severe depression, severe anxiety, and I'm on hand to help them eliminate that if they'll allow themselves to get better.
And how often do you hear people say they can't believe how much better they feel?
That's the greatest thing in the world to hear from people. It's something that never gets old. It never gets old. I never get tired of hearing that. And I also, as a matter of pride, never get tired of reminding the client who told him that would happen.
It is a fantastic feeling. I just want to share that with you because you were one of the first people I spoke to when I was at Meet RX. And, you know, I've had 3.5 years of hearing people saying, wow, I can't believe how easy this is. Not easy, actually, how simple it is. It's not easy because it's a big change, but it's simple, and they're very grateful for how it works. I mean, do you find you get much pushback on your social media? Do you find most people are pretty open to what you're saying because you've lived it?
Well, in the beginning, I got enormous pushback, but then when I didn't die, and it's obvious to people who know my past that I'm not that guy anymore. I'm not that angry, crazy troll who on his best day looked like he was ready to kill everyone within reach. And because I was a very angry, depressed person, and it was amazing to me. I didn't realize just how much anger I projected. But then I saw some pictures for me performing live music, and I remember those gigs, and in my head during those gigs, I'm having a blast. I'm having fun. But my expression is one of pure rage, and God help you if you interrupt me. That was the kind of look I and that's not conducive to making people want to come see you perform. Yeah, he sounds great, but I'm afraid of him. That's not a good thing.
So how would you rate your life now then when you're playing? Do you feel happier?
Well, number one, when I was mentally ill, I couldn't progress musically past a certain point. No matter how much I practiced, no matter how committed I was to my instrument, I could not get past a certain point. Now as a carnivore, there's no limit. I'm constantly finding that I'm better at some things than I ever was before. And it's because I put the time and the work in to improve. Because I want, by the age of 65, I want to be the best damn guitar player who ever lived to be 65, who ever walked the flipping earth. And if I don't get there, it won't be for a lack of effort. But performing now, it's the greatest thing ever. I love every note of every song I ever get to play. The experience of being on stage and sharing my joy is just medicinal beyond belief. And the crowd response to me now is extremely positive. It's a beautiful thing. I'm still not real comfortable with it. You know, when you tell yourself you're a piece of crap for 43 years of your life, you just don't stop believing that all of a sudden. And so it took a really long time to feel comfortable accepting compliments and realize these people don't have an ulterior motive. They genuinely like what you did. They love what the music you make. And it's okay to be humbly appreciative of that. And so that's the one thing if I had gotten this kind of response when I was young and crazy, I would not have been humble about it. I would have gone the arrogant, rock star, idiot way. That's not really who I am. And I just want to make music. Let me pay my bills through music. Let me buy my meat through music. And life's pretty spectacular when I get to do that.
That's brilliant, Brett. Sorry to get a bit deep, but I'm very interested in this because you said you see pictures.
Get as deep as you want, my friend.
Well, you said you got pictures of you and you looked like you thought you was having a good time, but you looked like you were full of rage. Were you full of anger for the people around you or with yourself?
Yes.
Oh, for both.
Yes. I had no tolerance for what I perceived to be as stupidity. I had no tolerance for too many things that were really just a waste of time that I believe were important. You know, my wife, bless her heart, that's why I in every interview I do, I say she's earned her place in heaven because she put up with me for all those years while I was just a mess. I mean, she would wake up some morning, Stephen, and say, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. But my illness would filter that and twist it and never in my favor to where what I honestly heard was, oh, yeah, it looks like it's going to be another beautiful day. Well, I adore my wife. So what's my response to, honey, what's wrong? And what do you mean what's wrong? I just told you it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. So that inability to communicate made everything so much more difficult. And, you know, for 13 years, I didn't get to perform music because people would call me up the day of a gig and say, why don't you just stay home tonight? You're too hard to get along with. And I couldn't understand it because I was like, but we sound great. And we did sound good. But I was oblivious to how difficult I made things for everybody else around me.
So was you
my behavior?
Sort of argumentative and obstructive?
Well, I wasn't argumentative. I was very close-minded and uncompromising. And in a musical environment, that's not conducive to longevity. You have to be able to listen to other people's ideas. You have to take their ideas seriously. You have to take with their feelings into consideration. And I just was kind of incapable of doing that on many levels as far as music was concerned.
So that's completely gone, all of that side of you?
Oh, 110%. One of the things that I think as a community we need to do a better job of is working with people for the after their symptoms are free. Because, you know, it's just like the morning my depression symptoms were gone, a toolbox that said Brett's happy skills, normal life skills did not appear. And I had to literally learn how to be a regular person. I had to teach myself. I had to recognize I can't think like that about people anymore. I can't talk like that about other people anymore because that's what I did when I was nuts and not because I was right to do it. I did it because I was nuts. And so it's taken a lot of long walks with a lot of quiet time to myself and pulling out ugly things and replacing them with positive things. And it's still a work in progress because I can still get irritated on occasion. And not necessarily for a valid reason, but my quality of life is vastly improved, but I know it could get even better. And that's one of the great things about the carnivore way of living, in my opinion. Every day continues to be better than the day before. Noticeably, to me, it's always better than the day before.
Yeah, and I would say, actually, I haven't spoken to you. We have sort of online and stuff, but not like face to face like this. You are even calmer than you used to be. You know, so even 3 years ago, I thought, I can't recognize what you tell me you used to be like, because you were, you know, charm personified and very helpful and all that stuff. But I do think you're a bit more laid back now. And obviously, I've seen you on Instagram with your guitar and all that, and thought, yeah, it's really, really good. I can remember you were a bit apprehensive about having a guitar in the meetings and strumming, and then you became more comfortable with it. So I think that's how I feel. I feel I'm trying to get better every day. I don't feel, right, I've done this 3.5 years, that's it, I'm sorted. I think we can still learn and improve, definitely. I'm probably I have a little bit more variety in my diet. Do you ever, I know you talked about budget and stuff like that, do you ever get people that come to you and say, I've got to give it up because I just can't afford it? Or, you know,
what I have experienced a lot of is people won't start the carnivore way of living because they believe it's too expensive. And my thought on that is always, my first thought is, if you can afford to be on the internet, you can afford to eat meat and drink water. because I'm not eating expensive steaks. I can't afford expensive steaks. I don't even necessarily like expensive steaks that much. But on a budget, you can do this. You know, there's an enormous variety of products, meat-based products that you can get. You know, canned sardines, for instance. You know, I know of people that's all they can afford. That's what they're eating, and they're doing well. I couldn't do that. Well, maybe I could. If it was that or be crazy, yeah, I could do that, because I really, I'm never going to risk a minute's worth of madness again. I've never had somebody come to me and say, I'm giving this up because I can't afford it anymore. But I have had lots and lots of people say, I can't start this because I don't think I can afford it. And if they give you the time to explain things, they will come around in most cases to, oh, this isn't as expensive as I thought it would be.
Yeah, and one of the things you really slipped into the conversation, because we don't talk about weight loss that much. We talk about health. But you said you'd put on a fair bit of weight at one point.
Well, not through on Carnivore, I gained 15 pounds of muscle because in September of 2018, I looked like a war refugee. I had lost all this weight. I'd lost 94 pounds and then doing low carb, and then on Carnivore, I lost 22 more. Wasn't doing any exercise, no resistance training whatsoever. And I looked like a little weak old man. And if you go to my YouTube channel, and go back to like February of 2019, you'll see what I'm talking about. And because I had people coming up to me who didn't see me all the time going, what are you doing? You look like you're aging backwards. And it wasn't until I saw this picture, somebody on my Instagram said, you know, you need to go back and look at that first video you posted and compare yourself then to now. And the difference is just phenomenal. But I did put on 15 pounds of muscle. I didn't gain any more weight than that. And in fact, I've lost some weight since then because due to injuries, I had to cut back my workout plan. I won't become the old version, the older version of Sean Baker, unfortunately. My body spent too much time sitting in a chair. And if I push myself the way I want to push myself when I am working out, I just cause myself injury, and that means more time not working out. So I had to curtail things. I do push-ups primarily now only, and I get an enormous amount of exercise moving my amplifiers from the house to the car to the stage and back again after being on my feet for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. It did. I was trying to tease out of you that you work out rather than just go, do you work out? Because that was one of the things we spoke about years ago.
Yes, and I was very much, you know, I still got my X3 bar, which I look at longingly because I felt really good doing the X3 program. It's just, you know, is it my abdominal muscle at this time? Is it a groin muscle that I've pulled? What, you know, is it a calf muscle? Is it something in my back? You know, I just got tired of the constant injuries, and I just had to accept the fact, okay, I can reach this level of fitness and maintain this level of fitness, but I'm not going to become the big, bulky, muscular guy that I'd hoped to be. And that's okay, because I've got enough strength and I'll have enough muscle to ensure my longevity to the point that I'll be around till my heart finally runs out of beats and says good night.
And I'm going to hunt down that video on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the description for people, because I can remember the difference in you. I can remember that. Right. Well, Brett, I like to keep it short, sharp. Do you have any final thoughts or tips you want to give to people?
We've all been indoctrinated to eat things that human beings should never, ever, ever consume. And the medical system, they're part of the problem. They don't work to eliminate symptoms. They work to manage symptoms. Calling the medical system today the disease management system is an accurate description, in my opinion. And so we have to individually choose to take control of our health. And I recommend that everybody who sees this, if you haven't started the carnivore way of eating, do yourself this favor of giving yourself a solid 90-day try so that you can experience what life is like without inflammation controlling your life. You won't regret it. It won't hurt you. It'll make you feel better than you ever thought possible.
Brett, thank you so much. Thanks for doing this.
Stephen, it's been a blast, man, and I hope we get to do it again one day.
So that was some great advice. If you want even more great advice, watch this video.